Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bobby Batumbakal, Executive Director of MBC. Welcome to our 2024 annual meeting. Before I turn over to our chairman for the official meeting, allow me to do some preliminaries. For those who haven't voted yet, you still have some time to do so. You may fill out the ballot forms. If you need any assistance, please raise your hand now, and some of my colleagues can assist you. Or you can ask me or any of my colleagues during the reception. The ballot takes a minute to fill, and voting ends at 7 p.m. today. Results will be announced tomorrow. We extend our sincerest gratitude to Ma'am Helen Yuchengco D. for graciously allowing us to host our annual meeting. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. And for allowing us to have our inaugural event at the Yuchengco Museum. Allow me to acknowledge the attendance of our board members present here today. Dr. Aris Alip, Ms. Cosette Canilao, Edgar Chua, Ambassador Jose Cuisha Jr., Ramon Del Rosario Jr., Riza Mantaring, Peter Marquera, Victor Paterno, Lito Tayag, and Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala. We're joined today by our dear colleagues for the Department of Foreign Affairs, Visa Division. I wish to recognize Assistant Director Anton Miranda. Thank you for joining us. We work closely with the DFA Visa Division in MBC's MBC member applications for the APEC Business Travel Card or the ABTC. Maraming salamat. Without further ado, I would now like to invite MBC Chair, Mr. Ed Chua, to officially call this meeting to order.
Thank you, Bobby, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I now call the annual meeting of the Makati Business Club for 2024 to order. May I ask our Secretary, Mr. Lito Tayag, to inform the body if and when the notice of the annual meeting was sent to the members of the club.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first notice of the annual meeting was sent by the Secretariat on April 29, 2024 to the members of the club on record.
May I now ask the Secretary to certify if we have a quorum for the meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have at least 257 corporate members represented in person or by proxy in this meeting, accounting for more than 50% of the club's 442 corporate members to date.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tayag. The next item is the approval of the minutes of previous annual meeting held 17th July 2023. The Secretariat sent copies of the minutes to all members via electronic mail on July 19, 2024 to give everyone an opportunity to read it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we dispense with the reading of the minutes of the previous annual meeting and that the same minutes be approved.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
A motion has been made and duly seconded that the reading of the minutes of MBC's annual meeting on 17 July 2023 be dispensed with and that the same minutes be approved. Are there any objections? There being none, the motion is carried. With your permission, ladies and gentlemen, I will now proceed with the chairman's report. It's a few pages, so please bear with me. Though it seems the pandemic is now a distant past, it is worth noting that when 2023 started, we did not know how quickly things would soon be back to normal, not even the new normal. We thought the shift would be gradual, but we learned otherwise very early on. Our January event with U.S. Ambassador Mary Kay Carlson became our most attended event in years. It was the opening salvo of a very busy year. MBC's mission is to promote an environment for job-creating investments that is inclusive and sustainable. In 2023, we focused on taxes, ease of paying taxes bill, and infrastructure, the proposed PPP code, both of which were passed during the year. Among others, we also worked on energy, taxation of e-commerce and jobs, the AMDEV Advanced Manufacturing Workforce Development Project, as well as the apprenticeship bill. We engaged policymakers by hosting 6 top members of the economic team after visiting them in 2022. These were former Finance Secretary Ben Jokno, Trade and Industry Secretary Fred Pascual, Energy Secretary Popo Lotilla, NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, and Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma, as well as Transportation Secretary Jaime Bautista. All these were well attended by our members. We also engaged lawmakers, undersecretaries, and officials to discuss and work on the bills, internal rules and regulations, and other policies. Throughout, we convened members and other companies to inform our policy positions and generate more interest in and support for common advocacies. AMDEV, a 5-year project led by Unilab Foundation and USAID, where MBC serves as secretariat, had its first full year. In 2023, we agreed to serve a similar role in ATIN, the Alliance for Tech Innovators for the Nation, to promote balanced policy for the digital economy. It's our second digital economy partnership after USAID SPEED, which stands for Strengthening of Private Enterprise for the Digital Economy, which entered its second year. Our advocacy for a competitive, reliable, and renewable energy was supported in large part by Climate Smart Ventures, an energy advisory funded in part by the Rockefeller Foundation. Under this partnership, we and CSV had comprehensive discussions with more than a dozen power companies, most of them MBC members. Alongside job-creating investments, MBC promotes a global outlook in geopolitics as well as trade and investment. We believe that the Philippines will benefit if more businesses think, act, and compete more globally. To that end, we hosted talks with global corporate leaders, Margaret Mary Wilson, of United Health Chief Medical Officer, and Kevin Strain, Sun Life CEO, reviving the Global Leaders series we started right before the pandemic. In the year of generative AI, we hosted learning activities with partners Microsoft and Bain & Company. We also had a meeting with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim and co-hosted EU President Ursula von der Leyen when they visited the Philippines. Aside from Ambassador Carlson in January, our members also heard from and met Australian Ambassador HKU in October. On the financial side, receipts jumped to 91.7 million from the prior year's 36.1 million, primarily driven by a significant increase in project fees, notably from ABAC 3 meeting held from July 27 to July 30, 2023, and a doubling of sponsorship fees. Cash disbursements also correspondingly increased to 96.2 million from 32.7 million following the ABAC 3 event. As a result, we had the 137,000 excess of revenues over expenses before income tax, which is a decrease in surplus compared to the 8.4 million excess in 2022, primarily due to the significant increase in expenses associated with hosting ABAC 3. External project funding, which is not included in our financial statements, climbed to 10.3 million from 7.5 million. Most of these funds pay for project hires, who vastly expand MBC's impact and relevance. We would like to thank you for your continued support for MBC, both by your membership contributions and your advice and participation. We are pleased to have welcomed 33 new members in 2023, which is a third straight record. Since the start of this year, we have welcomed 21 new members. Most of them are here today. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to meeting new members in the months to come. In March 2024, Francisco Coco Alcuas Jr., our Executive Director since 2018, stepped down to serve at the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Coco transformed MBC with new activities and formats, and by initiating sponsorships and externally funded projects that, during his tenure, almost doubled our annual income and almost quadrupled our reserves. The board elected Roberto Bobby Batungbakal, former country manager of Dow Chemical, as MBC's new executive director to replace Coco. We thank Coco for his service and Bobby for taking on the challenge of continuing to deepen MBC's impact and relevance. Most of all, we thank our dynamic staff for always delivering high-quality activities and effective policy advocacy. We thank you, our partners, corporates, embassies, and advocacy organizations, for your support for our shared missions. Most of all, our members for your unstinting support, leadership, and counsel throughout the years. Special thanks for those who serve on our committees, including Marivic Espano, former CEO of Punong Bayan and Arroyo, who stepped down from the Audit Committee this year, where she served since 2019. We will strive to stay worthy of your trust in the challenging and exciting times ahead. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the presentation of the financial report for 2023. And for this, let me call on our Treasurer, Riza Mantaring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to summarize MBC's financial statements for the year 2023. Our financial statements were audited by the firm PwC Philippines, Isla Lipana and Company, and these were duly approved by the club's Board of Trustees. The income statement discussion that follows only includes unrestricted funds over which MBC has complete control. It excludes restricted funds from some externally funded projects and entities such as ABAC Philippines, where MBC has shared or limited authority. In 2023, revenue increased by 2% to 22.4 million. This was led by a 109% increase in sponsorship fees to 3.1 million. Meanwhile, operating expenses rose by 7% to 21.9 million. This was led by a 52% increase in employee benefits to 4 million. Additionally, salaries, bonuses, and allowances increased by 21% to 10.3 million due to an increase in the number of regular staff, reflecting our organization's growth and commitments. Meetings and conferences expenses, which are basically our hotel venues, increased by 20% to 1.9 million. As a result, our excess of revenue over expense, in other words, our bottom line, was 500,000, two-thirds less than the 1.5 million in 2022. For the balance sheet, I will also report only on unrestricted funds. Our fund balance sheet rose by the previously mentioned excess, 0.5 million. The unrestricted fund balance in 2022 was 14.9 million, and in 2023, it went up to 15.4 million, a 3% increase. It has been 3 years since we actively branched out from mostly organizing events and meetings to executing projects and obtaining grants for them. These are mostly off books because most of the funds go to project hires and other direct costs. But they are essentially a new source of funding that allows us to strengthen policy advocacy as well as projects aligned with our mission. We are pleased to report that we signed almost 10 million pesos in grants in 2023. This includes our continuing work with international organizations like the USAID, the Center for International Private Enterprise, and the Netherlands Embassy, and our increasingly larger support for our policy advocacy in areas like renewable energy and digital policy. That completes the summary, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Riza. This month, we sent over the 2023 annual report, which features the initiatives of MBC in the past year, along with the Chairman's report and financial report. Are there any questions regarding the Chairman's report and financial report? May I ask if there are any questions regarding the acts of the board for ratification today? This can be found on page 33 of the annual report we sent you last July 19, 2024. If there are none, may we now proceed to the approval of the Chairman's report, the financial report, and the acts of the board for ratification today.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of the annual report of the Chairman and the audited financial statements for 2023, as well as the ratification of all of the acts and resolutions of the MBC board since the previous annual meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
A motion has been made and duly seconded for the approval of the Chairman's report and the audited financial statements for 2023 and the ratification of all acts and resolutions of the Board of Trustees since the last annual meeting. Are there any objections? There being none, the motion is carried. The next item in our agenda is the Board of Trustees elections, which will be discussed by MBC Executive Director Bobby Batungbakal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The MBC board has 11 members who serve 2-year terms. Members are elected on staggered basis, 5 on even years like 2024, 6 on odd years. Board members may run for re-election. 6 members accepted the nomination for 5 seats, including all of the incumbents. More details are in the communication we sent to you last week. The nominees are, number 1, Dr. Jaime Aristotel Alip. Number 2, Cosette Canilao. Number 3, Edgar Chua. Number 4, Ambassador Jose Quisha Jr. Number 5, Liberito Espiritu. And number 6, Manolito Tayag. Voting is via the ballot form, as I explained earlier. If you need any assistance, please approach me or any of my colleagues anytime. The voting ends at 7 p.m. tonight. Results will be announced tomorrow. May I ask if there are any questions regarding the process? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to return the floor back to the chairman.
Thank you, Bobby. For the audit of MBC's financial statements for 2024, the Board of Trustees approved the renewal of the engagement of Isla Lipana and Company, a Philippine member firm of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Do we have the approval of the body for this engagement?
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of the appointment of Isla Lipana and Company as the external auditor of MBC's financial statements for 2024.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
A motion has been made and duly seconded for the approval of the appointment of Isla Lipana and Company as the external auditor of the club's 2024 financial statements. Are there any objections? There being none, the motion is carried.
Mr. Chairman, before we conclude the meeting, may I invite the chair of our newly formed MBC Agri Committee, Mr. Lito Tayag, to share about our agri initiatives this year. Lito?
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you, Mr. Chair. This year, MBC is supporting efforts addressing the dual problems of high food inflation and poverty of agriculture workers. We're addressing this via 3 working groups. Please allow me to introduce our working group leads. Dr. Jaime Aristotel Alip, here with us of CARD MRI, is the head of our corporate cooperatives Agriculture Productivity Working Group. This group addresses the request from Secretary Kiko Laurel for MBC to help professionalize agriculture cooperatives. Next, Dicky Buhayin of True Digital heads our Agritech Working Group. Here we look at mechanizing and digitizing our agriculture supply chain. Last, Doris Ho leads our Agri-Logistics Working Group. This group aims to clear the obstruction in how our agriculture produce reaches markets.
Thank you, Mr. Tayag. We invite everyone to join us for the Food and Agriculture Summit, where experts, innovators, and working group leaders will come together to address the 2 pressing issues of our time. The Food and Agriculture Summit is on September 16 at 1 p.m. We will advise the venue. And may I ask if there are other matters the members would wish to discuss? No.
Mr. Chair, before we close, could we ask everybody to stay in their places and chairs for a group photo? Yes, thank you. Yes. Just stay in your places. Thank you. With that, all the items of the agenda for the Makati Business Club annual meeting for 2024 has been taken up. May we now have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the annual meeting be adjourned.
Ay. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Bobby, please pass the mic to Mr. Chairman.
That's fine, that's fine. May I hear a second for the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
Okay. On motion duly seconded, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much, Lito, Riza, and Bobby, and thank you everyone for joining this year's AGM. At this point last year, Mariana Zobel de Ayala graciously welcomed us to the Ayala Museum and kicked off the reception. This year, we have invited Helen Yuchengco D to extend her warm welcome at the Yuchengco Museum, marking MBC's inaugural event at this venue. Helen, may we ask you to provide us a short welcome?
Good afternoon, friends and partners from the Makati Business Club. It's our great honor to welcome you to the Yuchengco Museum for your annual reception this year. The Yuchengco Museum has been a cornerstone of cultural and artistic expression for nearly 20 years. By doubling as an event space we call Y Space, we can host significant gatherings such as yours. Please take the time to explore the 3 levels of exhibits and collections, including the Rizal Gallery on the 2nd floor. You will see all the paintings of Rizal's girlfriends. There are many of them. Thank you very much and good evening.
Thank you, Ma'am Helen. Lastly, allow me to invite everybody to MBC's upcoming events. First, the Agri and Food Summit, where food is everybody's business, September 16. Second, the Advanced Manufacturing Annual Summit on September 19. Third, the inaugural golf tournament on November 8. Fourth, the Business Government Partnership Summit and Digital Democracy Awards on November 15. We hope you can join us on this event. That ends our program proper. Please enjoy the rest of the evening.